Now it's time for No Pucks Given with Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Penguin Scoop's locker room buzz and straight-up analysis. No fluff, all hockey. Now, here's Dan.
Hello, it is No Pucks Given, episode 56. The playoff look ahead and a couple of changes that the Penguins are riding into the postseason. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on Pittsburgh Hockey Now platforms. Thank you for checking us out. Actually, this is a second take. My voice is a little bit weaker because I did the entire first episode and then I realized that I didn't have any sound. So we're doing this all again. If you can check out, I've got my T-shirt, my Letterkenny Irish T-shirt on. I figured that was appropriate to do a hockey podcast, right? So let's do this. What we're going to talk about on this here little show. A couple of the playoff matchups for the Penguins. I'm looking today anyway at Columbus and Philadelphia. Those are the two teams. I think Philadelphia is going to win it. I don't know what the Islanders were doing. Honest to goodness, I didn't plan on talking about the Islanders. But to fire Patrick Roy, 4 games to go. I mean, we haven't seen that in 25 years when the Devils, Lou Lamb, booted Robbie Ftorek in favor of Larry Robinson. Now, the Devils, of course, did go on to win the Stanley Cup. He looked like a genius. But with the Islanders, look, if Patrick Roy was a popular figure in the locker room, or at least liked, this could really go wrong for GM Matthew Darche. I mean, it could go south on him in a hurry, and they really don't have a whole lot of margin for error. The Penguins' magic number is 2. The Flyers are ahead of them with a game in hand. So, Pete DeBoer is not necessarily a popular coach. Here's a guy who has won, but by the end of year 3, the players are done with him. I mean, he made the Western Conference Final 3 years in a row with the Dallas Stars. They're like, okay, yeah, you got to go. Same thing in Vegas before that. So I really wonder how the Islanders players are going to react to him. I also sort of wonder what was going on that firing Patrick Roy with 4 games to go. I know the Islanders were cratering. I know they were in trouble, but they were never that good to begin with. So we're going to talk about the matchups with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Philadelphia Flyers. Also, we're going to talk about a couple of the things we published on Pittsburgh Hockey Now on Monday. Evgeny Malkin. And actually, Malkin is a nice springboard to talk about a couple of the changes that Dan Muse has made that have just paid off handsomely. I mean, unbelievably well for the Penguins. And they are now 2 points away, 1 victory away from punching their ticket into the 2025-26 Stanley Cup playoffs. It's a huge accomplishment, I think, first for Kyle Dubas. Just think about this. 3 years into this job. Look at the dichotomy of where Dubas came from and where he is. He was unceremoniously bounced out of Toronto. We think for asking for more power so that decisions could be made faster and he could affect the type of changes that he wanted to affect. Brendan Shanahan thought about it and said, no, we're good. 3 years later, Toronto is on the precipice of an absolute implosion out of the playoffs. And quite frankly, there's growing talk that by the start of next season, Austin Matthews won't be in a Maple Leafs jersey. I don't know, maybe in a Penguins jersey, but I digress. Poor Brad Treliving gets 3 years. He gets bounced because I don't even think he did a terrible job there in Toronto. You're just never quite sure who made the mistake up north? Was it the GM? Was it the president in between the GM and Scott Pelley, the president of MLSE? The board sort of runs things. And when Dubas was let go, the curtain was pulled back a little bit. And it was like, okay, Dubas would want to make a decision, had to go to Shanahan. Then from Shanahan, it would go up the chain to MLSE. From MLSE, they would discuss it and probably water it down, mangle it, take it back to Shanahan and back to Dubas. So who knows what really went on in Toronto? How many of those mistakes were Kyle Dubas's, and how many were the result of making a zebra out of a horse? But the Penguins are now on the verge here. So let's talk about the playoff matchups, because so much of advancing in the postseason is the matchup. The Flyers have charged. I almost brought Will James on the show today. Will James, our Flyers beat writer. I really like the kid. He's a couple of years now out of Penn State. He texted me on Sunday. I hope I don't get him in trouble. He's like, "Hey, Dan, can I use the headline, 'The Flyers are risen from the dead' in hockey terms?" I'm like, maybe not. Let's. It's actually kind of a joke I would have made. And I'm like, maybe we shouldn't. People might not understand the humor of it. And then I saw people on hockey Twitter making the same joke. I was like, come on. Here we are being good. And other people got to make the joke. But anyway, so the Flyers have surged into third place. First of all, any first-round series, be it the Islanders, be it the Flyers, be it the Columbus Blue Jackets, the Penguins will be favored and should win that series. As I pull up the Flyers lines, I'm going to kind of dive into this here. This could be a short series. I really don't like the Flyers' construction, at least in terms of a playoff series. I like Trevor Zegras and Tyson Forster, but let's take a look here. Let me share the screen. Oh, there's the screen share. Flyers line combinations from Daily Faceoff. Can you imagine what Sidney Crosby is going to do to Zegras in a 7-game series? I love Zegras' skill. I thought he was getting a bit of a bum rap in Anaheim. Things sort of spiral out of control there in terms of public perception and the whispers and all of that. But by game 3 or 4, Zegras is going to be hamburger. Crosby is going to get him in the corners and absolutely pound him into the ice. By game 4 or 5, Zegras is going to have 30-pound legs. His skates are going to be cement. Sidney Crosby is just going to pound him into oblivion. That's going to take so the Penguins win the first line battle there. Make no mistake, there's real talent there with Forster, Zegras, and Tippett, and they might have some early success. Now the second line, Porter Martone. Oh, boy, did Kyle Dubas love Porter Martone. He was so hoping to be able to draft him. Don't forget, Dubas was the GM of Team Canada last year at the World Championships, and they took Martone. And those two just sort of hit it off. I saw it firsthand at the draft combine. Martone pops off the elevator. "Mr. Dubas, I've got my papers all signed." He had to sign some papers or fill out some papers for some drills or something like that. But he had them in his hand. He was waving them all proudly. And he and Dubas then, Dubas excused himself from talking with me and another media member to, go take care of Porter or go talk to Martone. But those two were funny. They just really had a thing going. And I know Dubas really loved him as a player. He's starting off really well, too. Game-winning goal, 2 points in his second game. Come on. But look at the Flyers' second line there. Christian Dvorak as your second line center. That's kind of a fourth liner. So the Penguins have a clear advantage when we start talking about the top six. Now, come down to defense. Straight up, Sondheim and Ristolainen against Wotherspoon and Erik Karlsson. Who wins that battle? Who's going to have the puck on their stick a whole lot more? Yeah, the Penguins win those very key battles, I think, fairly decisively. And there is a reason. This season, in the 4 head-to-head matchups, the quirk of the NHL standings, the Flyers were 2-2 against the Penguins. The Penguins were 2-0-2 against the Flyers. The Flyers' 2 wins were via shootout, early October, I think October 28th. And then, again, the shootout when Trevor Zegras kind of did the little twisty move on March 7th. The Penguins' wins were 5-1 and 6-3. 6-3 was, check my notes, January 15th. That's when the Flyers should have been gelling and coming together. And the Penguins really rattled their cage that night. So I don't think that the Flyers have a lot of advantages against the Penguins. I know they have surged. I know the Flyers are red hot. But there's going to be, first of all, this week is like a slowdown week on the NHL schedule. Someone needs to explain to me how in the world we have 5 games in 7 days, Monday to Sunday. 5 games, 7 days. Back and forth to Tampa and, the weekend series with Florida. I can only imagine how many hours the Penguins players slept on. I know I unintentionally, involuntarily got some extra sleep on Monday myself. So 5 games in 7 days, and then this week, the Penguins don't play but 1 game from Monday to Friday. They play Thursday in New Jersey, the game in which the Penguins could clinch a playoff spot. How does that happen? 5 and 7, and then 1 in 5. I guess there is a game Saturday, so call it 2 and 6. The Flyers and anybody else, then the regular season breaks for several days before they kick into the playoff gear. So the Flyers will have plenty of time to cool down. The one advantage that Philadelphia might have is in goal. Dan Vladar is surprisingly, I didn't realize he was having such a good year, a .906 save percentage. Certainly ahead of the Penguins' .888 for Stuart Skinner, .891 for Artur Silovs. But as you know, I've tended this season to discount Penguins goalies' save percentages, because the Penguins largely play a pretty good team defense. But when they break down, my goodness, they just absolutely, the tires don't fall off, they go flying off. There are explosions, there are fireworks. I mean, there's pyrotechnics involved when the Penguins break down. Dan Muse is fond of saying, we made too many loud mistakes, too many loud scoring chances. So, yeah, that's why the Penguins goalies' save percentage and their statistics probably matter less than the eye test. That's why I've stuck up for Skinner. And this past weekend, I had to stick up for Silovs. Not that I really wanted to stick up for Silovs. He is what he is right now. He's probably a softer NHL goalie. He's also 24 years old and a rookie. The response to him this past weekend was it's kind of embarrassing. And I mean for the social media crowd, not for the goalies. I mean, one soft goal and he's not an NHL goalie. He shouldn't be on the team. Call up Murashov right now. I'm going to take a little tangent here. in between talking about the Flyers and Columbus. By the way, before I put a pin in it, I like the Penguins to beat Philly in no more than 6 games. It could even be a 5-game series. I like the Penguins that much more over Philadelphia. I mean, Rick Tocchet is going to have a little bit of an experience edge over Dan Muse, but nobody outworks Muse. Tocchet might get one over on him early in the series, but that will be about it. So I really do like the Penguins in a medium range series against Philly. Now let's talk a little bit about the Penguins goaltending, because I have to get it off my chest, and I wrote a bit about it on Monday afternoon in my column there, the Penguins 3 thoughts. There can be a giant canyon of nuance between great and terrible. And there can, in fact, be 2 positives in the same conversation. Penguins fans have a bad habit. Y'all have a bad habit of, if you want something else, therefore what you have or what somebody else wants is terrible, bad, awful. Artur Silovs. I want Sergei Murashov in net. Therefore, I can't even praise Silovs for a really good performance on Sunday. You notice that? You notice that nobody was talking about Silovs Sunday? Why was that? The guy stopped 29 of 31 shots, praise from his team and his coach, had a really good game. Was a difference maker on Sunday. But everybody had so emotionally invested in demanding Murashov that you can't praise your guy. That always struck me as so counterproductive to just enjoying your team. I don't get it. Also, now let's talk a little bit about Murashov. Or should I hold off on Murashov? Yes, I'm going to hold off on Murashov until after I talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. In fact, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take this break right now on the Odyssey Podcast Network. It is No Pucks Given, episode 56, playoff matchups and what's working for the Penguins. We'll take this quickie little timeout and be back right after this. All right, we're back here on No Pucks Given. You're probably hearing this Tuesday morning, April 7th. I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now networks and platforms and all of the fun places that you find me. Although most of you find me on YouTube, which I'm just fine with. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they've gone ice cold. Maybe they used up all of their rocket fuel to get to third place. Actually, I guess very briefly, for one day anyway, second place, or for hours, they were in second place. Maybe they used up all the rocket fuel. But if they can take a breath, they've lost, 6 in a row, 3 in a row in regulation. Take a look at their lines, though. They are the team that really could give the Penguins the most trouble. And it's because they're deep down the middle and they're good on the blue line. Just right down the middle here. You go with Fantilli. You go with Sean Monahan, Charlie Coyle. That's a solid top 9 pivot. Marchenko, 6 skills. Boone Jenner, made for the playoffs. His game is absolutely tailor-made. That heavy bit of offense and defense, he's made for the playoffs. Connor Garland isn't far behind. Garland can mix it up in the playoffs as well. And then the third line, too, with Coyle and Sillinger. Also, come down here. Let's take a look at the defensive pairings. This is the only defense pairing, I think, in the Metro Division, besides Carolina, that can keep up with Wotherspoon and Karlsson. Werenski very well might win the Norris Trophy. Werenski, if the vote is split between Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, Werenski is such a solid choice that he might just walk right past those two and get the trophy. And Matejchuk, Braden Yeager's former teammate there in Moose Jaw. Matejchuk is solid. I don't know if he's technically a rookie this year or if he used up his eligibility last year. Regardless, good young defenseman. That pairing can, in fact, give Carlson and Wotherspoon a run for money. Provorov, Fabro, also pretty good. In net, probably you've got Jet Greaves, who's been solid as well, although his statistics are sort of kind of down closer to Artur Silovs. If the Penguins and Columbus do play, I would think that's a heavy series. That's going to be a war. That's going to be at least 6 games. But like the Islanders and the hockey gods made a deal a long time ago to sort of screw with the Penguins when those teams quarrel, it seems like the Penguins and the hockey gods have a little pinky swear to mess with the Columbus Blue Jackets when those two teams go. Columbus has been the little brother to the Penguins since their inception. They finally make the playoffs, and who do they draw? The buzzsaw Penguins that year. So I do like the Penguins to beat Columbus. It's tough to get past the Sidney Crosby factor. It's going to be tough to get past the Erik Karlsson factor. And I've got to also think if Genny Malkin's going to be up here. He's going to be at level 10 getting back into the playoffs as well. As deep and solid and as tough as Columbus can be, yeah, that's a different ballgame when the Penguins' stars are on their toes. And Columbus can't match it. Philadelphia can match the skill a little bit, but certainly not the toughness of the Penguins' stars. So that's why I really do think in that round 1 series, even with the Islanders too, but the Islanders have to show me something because I don't know who the Islanders are right now. I don't know what DeBoer is going to do to them, for them, with them this week. So I'm kind of leaving them float until we get a look at them. Is he going to flip them to maybe a bit more of a defensive posture? Is he, he's a really smart guy, really smart coach. I don't know. Maybe he unleashes them. I just don't know. So until we know anything about the Islanders, besides, Matthew Barzal and Horvat and Ilya Sorokin and net and Matthew Schaefer, we know the personnel, but until we know the team, I suppose anything I say can and will be used against me in the court of public opinion. Now then, I want to turn the page a little bit here and talk about the Penguins specifically. What is going so well for them? Realize that over the last 5 games, the Penguins have scored more goals than any Penguins team since 1995-96. It's unbelievable what they have been doing, and I think it's in large credit to Dan Muse. I mentioned it was, the Penguins making the playoffs is a feather in the cap of Kyle Dubas. Well, it's also a big feather in the cap of Muse. I mean, here's a guy who stepped into a situation that I don't know that any of us really knew what the situation was. The big summer trade-off never happened. So here's a rookie head coach, not much older than Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, by the way, steps in with the old core still in place, the veterans still around them, and retreads and second chancers. And actually, the Penguins have played 12 rookies this year. And for Muse to figure out how to unlock all of them has been impressive. I mean, really think about how far a lot of the players have traveled and have come in their careers. They came to the Penguins for a chance, but Muse figured out, how to get the best out of them. Erik Karlsson especially. Watching Erik Karlsson play is a treat, and that's in part because of his relationship, him feeling empowered by Dan Muse, him feeling supported, and all of that. And a lot of the other guys have said that around the locker room too. They don't worry that their next mistake will be their last. And in that sort of different air and atmosphere, they can do more things. So it's a real feather in Dan Muse's cap. But he has stuck to his guns on a couple of big decisions. The first was moving Evgeny Malkin from center so that he could play Tommy Novak at center. Can't say I was entirely for it, but it worked. And then as Malkin was battling injuries and as the games have gotten tougher, well, Novak had really trailed off. Novak had a great 6 to 8 week stretch in his season, which is kind of bookended by a terrible October, November, and a really bad March and early April, let's say. I think he's got, 2 or 3 points over his last 13 games. I don't know if he had a point on Sunday. That's why I'm hedging a little bit. But he hasn't been producing. So Dan Muse takes... Really, it's just this far short of radical step to take Rickard Rakell off of Crosby's line and put him back at center. Now, when Crosby and Malkin were out of the lineup, Rakell was the pivot, and it didn't work. It just wasn't working, although Muse kept saying, he's getting better, he's doing some good things here, he's doing some good things there. Muse went back to it, with Crosby at the top of the lineup attracting the other team's top defenseman. Now Rakell is getting, first of all, he's got Evgeny Malkin getting healthier, and those two have a little telepathy going. On the rush, they're playing with speed. They're even playing well in the defensive zone, believe it or not. So that was a gutsy move by Muse to kind of break up your very good top line that you can count on for a goal or two per night. Putting Rakell there, it's working. And now that Rakell is really blossoming in the middle, I mean, he's always good down below the goal line, down below the circles. He's got a little slick stick. He's creative down there. And so he can distribute. He can take it himself. He can go to the net. And it really has been a lot of movement and speed in the offensive zone with that line. Primarily Rakell and Malkin. I don't mean to diminish Tommy Novak, but his game is really it's out of sorts right now. He's not doing enough good things, but the other two are, and it's creating a successful line. So that was really one thing Muse did. And let me share the screen here of the column that I wrote on Monday. Because, yeah, I definitely got into the goaltender stuff, and I'll get to Murashov here. The other thing that Muse did really well, I wouldn't have done it. I'm not sure how many other coaches would have absolutely stuck to their guns and stuck to it, keeping Sam Gerard and Chris Letang together. In Gerard's first 11 games as a Penguin, he had a total of 4 shots on goal and a couple of assists. In his last 5 games as a Penguin, which, he's only played 16, so, first 11, last 5. Gerard has 4 assists and 4 shots on goal. So his last 5 games, he's already blown away his first 11 games. And I wandered over to have a chat with him in Tampa. Actually, just the way it worked out, I haven't had a chance to go talk with him one-on-one and introduce myself and sort of pick his brain a little bit. But having picked Chris Letang's brain a couple of weeks earlier on the pairing and the status, really, of them, it was good to get his take on it. And he's like, yeah, sometimes we're both going to go, meaning we're both going to pinch. It's up to the forwards to read us sometimes, too. I kind of liked that answer. They're communicating so much better. They're working. When the Penguins were losing the games to the top competition of Carolina, Colorado, Dallas, that second pairing was absolutely getting caved in. They weren't able to affect the breakouts. They weren't winning puck battles. They were just on different pages up and down the ice. And as a result, the Penguins were already struggling with Crosby in and out of the lineup with a banged up Evgeny Malkin. So the Penguins were struggling. They didn't need their second D pair to crater as well, but that's what happened. Once Gerard and Letang figured it out, the last 5 games have been splendid. The stats show it. The eye test shows it. How many times against Florida did you see Gerard take the puck along the wall, go down deep around the net? And now what he's doing is you have an extra stick in the fight. Either a defenseman has to leave his responsibility to cover Gerard, which opens up a man. A low forward has to leave to cover Gerard, same deal. Or a high forward has to come down to take him, and now you've opened up the top of the zone. Either way, provided Gerard doesn't make bad decisions with the puck, and he hasn't over the last 5 games, he's been making the right decisions. The Penguins now have an advantage on the second pairing as well. And I think that's really important to note. And just watch. Not just watch Gerard or Letang take the puck deep, but watch how the other team has to then respond. I mean, they could just leave the defenseman uncovered, at which point Gerard is good enough, Letang is good enough, then to take that space, get a good shot on net. That has really been one of the factors in the Penguins' offensive output. Of course, Rickard Rakell just filling the net. Unbelievable, hasn't it? I think we're waiting on Chinakhov and Crosby to have that click moment. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. There have been some high points with Chinakhov, Crosby, Rust. But just how good Rakell has been. The only downside to Rakell at center has been the faceoffs. He's a 35% faceoff guy, is Rickard Rakell, which means you can't use him in the defensive zone, and you really can't maybe use him in some big situations when you need that faceoff win. Perhaps he and Nick Bonino can really put in some hard work this week, and if they do, I will bring you video of it. At least if I see it, I will bring you video of it. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Penguins goalies. I guess I brushed past it. It was a little bit crazy. Listen to me. I mean, honest to goodness, I understand the call for Silovs, or the call for Murashov. Understand it completely. The kid is the future. But do you think Kyle Dubas and his team, that includes goalie guru John Elkins, are sitting there keeping Murashov down for any artificial reason? Of course not. That is the thing. Listen, as soon as Murashov is ready to play, he's here. No ifs, no ands, or buts about it. As soon as they deem the equation to balance, as soon as Dubas and Elkin and Kyoto and everybody who gets a say in this conversation, as soon as they deem the risk to be at an acceptable level compared to the benefit that they will get, Murashov is in the net. I don't know why that was so difficult to comprehend for some people. They just pounded the table, called me names. Like, listen, I'm not making a decision here, Slappy. I'm just telling you how it's all going down. I'm telling you exactly what the Penguins are thinking. But I get it. In my position, it's always shoot the messenger. I've learned that a long time ago. I've got the rhinoceros hide. I even find it amusing at some points. But then there's Artur Silovs, who has the game on Sunday, right? 29 of 31. He wins both games. he was admittedly much more comfortable in the second game of a back-to-back. And I can appreciate why, because Silovs he's a starting goalie horse. He needs those starts. He needs those puck touches. He needs a lot of it to feel comfortable. He doesn't necessarily thrive as much in a 1A or a backup role. So he gets a couple of starts. Second verse, much better than the first verse. But why? Honest to goodness now, for those of you who are really in the Murashov camp, what prevents you from enjoying Artur Silovs being successful? Like, can you not have a duality where I'm really anxious to see Murashov, but a fan should be kind of glad their team won? But Pittsburgh and Toronto have this disease, wherein you guys are the two leading, I don't know, the two best at dragging down your own players because you want something else. It's kind of crazy to me to sort of watch this unfold. And I probably should step back from it more than I do and just let you all have at it on social media. But I have this compulsion and this compunction to make sure the truth is there. And that just really upsets some people when they're on a good bender, on a good emotional bender, you know. I think you might get your wish. I think if Skinner is out for a week or so, there's going to be some games to play for the second goalie. I would expect Silovs. If Skinner is out, I would expect Silovs to play on Thursday when the Penguins can clinch. And if they do, now you've got two against the Capitals. You play Silovs once again on Saturday. And imagine, how's this for a storyline? The hockey gods may have ordained this amazing storyline where Sergei Murashov, the Penguins' Russian wonderkid, gets to send off Alex Ovechkin in his final Washington game on Sunday. That will be... It's almost too cool, too delicious for it to happen in real life. I'm kind of rooting for it, don't get me wrong. I don't want Stuart Skinner to be hurt. I don't want any player to be hurt. But if he's going to miss time, I wouldn't mind seeing Murashov against Washington on Sunday. And then maybe you play Murashov again against St. Louis. And at that point, you know, I wouldn't expect Murashov to be so unbelievably good that he has to start game one of the playoffs. So I don't think that's what you'll see, but look, maybe that's what happens. And if that's what happens, that's kind of a natural organic outgrowth, not a forced thing. Silovs had an .860 save percentage over his last 8 games before Sunday. I was kind of being beaten over the head with that stat until, if you look at my column, I kind of realized that, oh, by the way, in the 9 games prior to that, Silovs was like at .912. 8 of 9 games, well above 900. And it's just, there's a lot more to consider. And I guess that's why I exist, is to make people mad and to make you consider those things that people aren't considering. That's where we will put the fork in this little No Pucks Given episode 56. I appreciate you all very much. Like, share, subscribe. Do all of that fun stuff. Say hi when you see me on the road, and we will talk soon. Have fun.